What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to KTM Sports Nation. I am your host, Kevin Tyler McGuinness, and we will be talking about one of my favorite sports tonight. It is all about the UFC. The UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We have so much to discuss. I just want to welcome everybody for joining on YouTube, on Instagram. Thank you for the support. And I'm looking forward to talking about the UFC tonight. There's so much going on when it comes to Dana White and Ilia and UFC's top stars. I mean, it's just going to be this weekend. Reportedly, Dana White came out and said that this weekend we will have the card finalized supposedly for the White House. UFC White House will be probably, according to Dana White, which I hope is true, will be finalized this weekend. I'm excited for this weekend. I'm excited for the UFC announcement of this card. And Dana White is saying this will be the biggest card in the history of the UFC. So God only knows what is or who is going to be on this card. It's scheduled to be, like I said, in the past, the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. 250 years of the USA. It's hard to believe 250 years of this great country we live, and the event is supposed to take place June 14th, 2026, which is, President Trump's birthday. He wants to do it on his birthday, supposedly. So that's the scheduling timing for this card. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I'm hyped for it. It's going to be streamed on Paramount Plus, and also it's supposed to be, I believed, on live cable, Optimum, whatever you have on CBS. So it's going to be on live television, and it's going to be on Paramount. So if you have Paramount or if you have live TV, it'll be on both. It's going to be on June 14th, 2026. The CEO of TKO, which owns the UFC and the WWE, announced that they'll only feature the report is it'll feature only 6 to 7 fights for that card. I'm hoping for more, honestly. I mean, I don't think 6 to 7 fights is enough for this card. I think it's too big. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I don't think this will ever happen again. President Trump, like I said, is a huge UFC fan. He's always been a big supporter of Dana White and the organization that he runs. Conor McGregor. Card, one of the greatest cards in the UFC. We will have the biggest, we will have the baddest, we will have the best UFC fighters there is in the UFC fighting on this card. I totally believe. I believe Conor will be on it. I believe Jones will be on it. I believe Prep will be on it. I believe Israel Adesanya will be on it. Throw Sean Strickland on it. I mean, Sean Strickland, Izzy, let's see it. I want to see it again. I might as well. I mean, Sean Strickland is American as America get. Put all these guys on the White House card. They always see spotlight. They're just stars. They should all be on the card. So I'm looking forward to matchmaking this week. This weekend, I'm saying, Dana White saying that this card will finalize. Dana White was also on Pat McAfee a couple of weeks back and did say that Conor McGregor is one of the main focal points and in the runners for the White. If Conor is on this card, I think he will be the main event. I don't care what anybody says. He draws the biggest numbers. He's the biggest draw in the history of the UFC. I believe he will be the main event of this card. He is my number one fighter. I hope to see him as a main event. I don't think he'll be a co-main. He's just too big of a draw for the UFC. He'll draw the viewership. He draws everything. He was one of the main reasons. He is the biggest superstar in the history of the UFC. He has to be the main event. So Dana White said it on Pat McAfee's shows that he will be on the he is one of the runners. So obviously I believe he will be on the card. I don't see and he's training like crazy. He's been training nonstop. Conor McGregor, I think he's for real. He's been sparring, training, fighting people. He's just been sparring nonstop. I just can't wait to see him back in the octagon for the UFC and finally fighting again, because it's been too long. 5 years is too long. But like I said, Dana White was on Pat McAfee's show and did say that Conor McGregor will not fight Michael Chandler. He said that's long gone. It's been too long. I think it's not. I don't believe it's a draw anymore. I think I'd rather see somebody else. But like I said, Dana White was on the show, and here he is talking to Pat McAfee on his show about Conor McGregor and the White House.
Then Monday, we're all in on the White House fight. We don't have anything laid out. Nothing. It'll all start Monday.
Okay. All right.
And no disrespect to Chandler. We love Chandler. Chandler's one of the... You don't have enough time in your show for me to talk to you about how awesome Chandler is. And you know how I feel about Conor and everything that he's done for the sport and this company. But that's not the fight we're going with.
Go ahead, AJ.
Dana, I know you're saying that's not the fight, but is there anything, I know Conor's been publicly asking for this, he wants to be on the card. Is there anything that you're looking for him to do to prove that he's responsible, or he can be the guy to headline that card?
Conor and I have a great relationship. We talk a lot, through text, and he's definitely in the running for this fight.
Like I said, it's Dana White talking about Conor McGregor and the White House and Michael Chandler not being the guy anymore on the card. Like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing Conor McGregor coming back. The BKFC, Scott Feldman, also came out and said that this is the best Conor McGregor he has seen in 10 years. 10 years, that's a big statement. I mean, if he's that focused, he's going to be dangerous, because 10 years ago, Conor McGregor was the best Conor McGregor he's ever been. I mean, he was a featherweight champion. He was a lightweight champion, winning the belt as a featherweight against one of the greatest, if not the greatest, featherweight of all time, Jose Aldo. I mean, he hasn't lost. Jose Aldo didn't lose for 10 years in a row until losing to Conor McGregor. So if it's that Conor McGregor in 2016, because you did say 10 years, so it's 2026 now, 10 years ago, if this is the best version of Conor McGregor, I'm looking forward to seeing it, because if he's dialed like that, he could kill people. I mean, the guy, he was unbelievable in his prime in 2016. He's saying he's like his prime. I hope so. It would be awesome to see. He's one of the best. At the time, he was definitely one of the best. He was the best lightweight too at the time. Number 1 ranked lightweight, number 1 ranked featherweight. He beat Eddie Alvarez. He completely washed him in that fight. For the lightweight belt. And then after that, he got a little famous, and he made money, and he fought time to time, and then he wasn't as focused as he was when he was during this time in 2016. But if Scott Feldman, the BKFC boss, is saying that he's 100% the old Conor McGregor and is totally dialed to come back as the old Conor McGregor, I mean, I'm excited to see it, because this is his partner in the new organization called Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, which Conor McGregor is a co-owner with Scott Feldman for this new organization. So they obviously work very close. So it would be great to see this Conor McGregor come back. It's been way too long. I'm excited to see him come back. Let's go. I can't wait. Return to the Mac. But here's Scott Feldman talking about Conor McGregor coming back to the UFC as 100% focused and dialed in?
I just want to tell you guys this. The best times 10 Conor McGregor you've ever seen right now. Better than he was when he was in his prime. The most focused, just wants to do everything right. I mean, he's training his ass off each and every day. He's eating right. He's going to church. He's doing everything he's supposed to do. This is not a Conor McGregor that we've seen in the past couple of years. This is the best Conor McGregor that I've personally ever seen. And I'm talking on TV and everywhere. I've never seen a Conor McGregor like this, more focused than I ever thought he ever could get, but he is.
All right, so what's the David Feldman confidence meter at on us seeing him fight at the White House this summer?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the negotiations going on as far as financially, so I don't know. I know that Conor had said publicly, that his contract was a little shaky because of the pay-per-view point that he had in there, but I'm sure that the UFC wants Conor McGregor to fight. He's going to fight, and they're going to make it work. And it makes sense for him to fight the White House, right? I mean, he visited the White House. He's friends with Trump. He's friends with Trump's wife. It just makes sense for him to be here. So my confidence level is probably around a 99%.
Like I said, that's Scott Feldman talking about Conor McGregor coming back to the UFC. I believe he's going to fight the last 2 fights in his remaining contract. Supposedly, Conor's saying his contract is void with the UFC because, it was a pay-per-view contract. I think they'll renegotiate it and make it work with Paramount. I think Conor McGregor will get that contract worked out with Dana White. And it'll be, part of Paramount's deal, and it'll be renegotiating everything, and then it'll go away. If Conor wants to still be part of the UFC after the 2 fights, I'm sure the UFC will welcome back with open arms because he is the biggest draw in the history of the UFC. Conor McGregor is just, he is who he is. He is the biggest superstar in the UFC. Today he just dropped sparring footage of him fighting PFL's 6'5", one of the stars that they have. They dropped a couple of footage and pictures on his Instagram, and he looks pretty locked in. He looks fast on the feet, fast with moving in and out. Spinning back kicks, a lot of karate different moves as I haven't seen in a while. He loves that spinning back kick. If he's anywhere close to what he used to be, he's gonna be insane. I think the rumored, and I believe honestly the only opponent that you could have left, because Dana White ruled out Michael Chandler, ruling out Jorge Masvidal. I think with the history and everything, and now him coming out and saying that he wants to come back to the UFC and fight in the UFC again and come for the BMF belt or whoever he wants to fight, Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz, make the fight with Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, the third for the trilogy. There was the first fight, Nate Diaz with the shocking choke. The biggest shock, one of the biggest shocks in the history of the UFC, Nate Diaz choking and submitting Conor McGregor, and then Conor McGregor winning via decision. The second fight, unanimously, which I believe Conor McGregor won. So I believe the fight to make for the White House is Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, number 3. I mean, I would love to see this fight. I hope that this would be an option. I mean, They talk so much crap to each other. These guys on the mic presence to each other. It's one of the best press conferences when it comes to back and forth, banter between 2 different UFC legends or superstars. These guys are absolute UFC legends. Nate Diaz has been in the UFC for a long time. Hasn't fought in a couple years since he beat Tony Ferguson via submission a couple years ago. But Nate Diaz is 40 years old, and Conor McGregor is 37. And they've always talked about fighting this third fight going back many, many years ago. I believe it's 10 years now. Make the third fight between these 2. It's going to be a massive draw. I don't care what anybody says. Anybody says that's a UFC fan that wouldn't watch this, they don't know what they're talking about. With all the nostalgia, with all the history that is between these 2, and everything that they've argued about, everything that they've settled out in the octagon. I believe this will be a major. I think this is worthy of a main event. Nate Diaz has always been, and Nick Diaz has always been, a major foundation of the UFC for many years, many years. I think 20 plus years they've been part of the UFC. Nate Diaz has fought, Leon Edwards. He's fought many different fighters. Nick's fought GSP. He's fought, GSP is the second greatest, my opinion, in the history of the UFC. Greatest welterweight to ever step in the octagon. If there wasn't John Jones, GSP would be the greatest fighter in the history of the UFC. So, like I said, these guys, these Diaz boys, they know how to get down and dirty. They are from, they just know how to scrap. They love the scrap. That's all they live to do is scrap and fight people. I would love to see these two, Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz going back and forth. It would be phenomenal to see. I think it's definitely worthy of the White House card. I believe it will either be I think it has to be the main event. Like I said, Conor McGregor is way too big to be a co-main event or a prelim fight. Definitely not prelim. If there is a prelim, 6 to 7 fights, I don't even think it's even enough for a prelim. So it would just be a main card. Like I said, I hope it's 12 to 14 at least. I think Conor and Nate Diaz 3 is the fight to make for Conor McGregor's return. Everybody will watch it. The press conference will be insane. The viewership for this fight will be insane, and this rest of everybody else that's fighting on this card. I want to see Nate Diaz come back. He made it public on his Twitter that he is ready to come back and take the BMF belt and ready just to beat whoever he wants. He's ready to come back and take the UFC back by storm. His brother Nick came out and said that he's ready for a title run. I mean, that's a long shot. He's 41 years old. 41 years old. That I don't know. He's definitely not. I mean, for him to take a title shot is very, very slim. I don't see it happening. But Nick is also saying that he would make a title run. I highly doubt that. Making a title run because he's up there in age, and that division is pretty good. Pretty good. Khamzat runs the welterweight division. I think for the White House we will have Khamzat versus Usman for that belt. I think, or you could have Islam versus Usman if Ilia, because Ilia I believe is gonna fight Justin Gaethje at the White House. I mean, I would love to see Ilia and Islam fight at the UFC. Ilia's come out and said that he wants Ilia Poirier. I mean, it's very convenient all of a sudden that Islam wants him, just a couple months before the White House. I believe it's not a coincidence that, he's sitting comfortable at 170 at welterweight champion, while Ilia is 155 and the lightweight champion. And now that all his family stuff is all dealt with, he's ready to come back and, reclaim his throne. And I think he's already his. Honestly, Ilia Poirier is the best, fighter in the UFC right now, in my opinion, besides Islam Makhachev. Ilia Poirier's walked down amazing fighters, amazing Hall of Fame fighters. He knocked out Volkanovski, Holloway, and Charles Oliveira. 3 of the best fighters the UFC's had. He's totally knocked him out. Ilia Poirier is an absolute stud. He is just unbelievable. But like I said, Islam Makhachev recently has said that he will fight Ilia Poirier at the White House. I don't think he picked a weight, which he didn't. I don't believe he picked a weight, which would be 155. I don't care. Fight for the belt. But I think Ilia's going to fight Justin Gaethje because Justin Gaethje earned his spot. He is the interim champion, and they have to settle who is the undisputed champion. So it's going to be Ilia versus Justin Gaethje. I believe that will be either the main event or the co-main, depending if Conor's fighting. Conor, like I said, is the biggest draw in the UFC, so I think he will be the main event, and whoever Ilia fights will be the co-main event. And I think Ilia will be fighting Justin Gaethje to unify, the lightweight belt. I believe Ilia Topuria beats Justin Gaethje. I love Justin Gaethje. He is the highlight, the human highlight, Justin Gaethje. He is one of the best in the UFC. Ilia Topuria is better than him, though, honestly. Ilia Topuria's got way more power. He's younger. He's in his prime. I like Ilia Topuria more. I think Ilia Topuria beats him, knocks him out, unfortunately, because I like Justin, and becomes the undisputed lightweight champion. And Islam is going to have to wait to fight Ilia Topuria. But I would love to see that. If Justin Gaethje never fought for the interim belt, he would be fighting Ilia Topuria. Islam would be fighting Ilia Topuria at the White House. But it is what it is. You got to unify the belt. There's only got to be there has to be one champion every division. Ilia versus Gaethje will be the fight at the White House. But like I said, Islam reportedly, he did say, interviewers asking him, "You ready to fight Ilia Topuria?" And he said, "Anytime, pretty much anywhere." So here's Islam Makhachev talking about Ilia Topuria fighting either at the White House or whenever after that. He's ready for him.
There's been a lot of talk about the potential fight between you and Ilia Topuria. How do you look at that situation?
Yeah, I like this idea. If UFC want, I know a lot of MMA fans want this fight. I'm ready.
Like I said, Islam Makhachev saying he's open to fighting, Ilia Topuria now, which is way, way, way overdue. It should have happened already. But like I said, I don't think he's getting that fight till after the White House, because Ilia Topuria is going to fight Justin Gaethje for the undisputed belt. Justin Gaethje has solidified his spot for that chance by beating Paddy Pimblett. Definitely unanimously. He totally destroyed Paddy Pimblett's face in that fight. Justin Gaethje definitely is the guy for the number one contender and for that title fight with Ilia Topuria. I'm excited to see that fight. Whether it's Ilia, Islam, Ilia, Justin, it's going to be Ilia Justin because they need to unify that undisputed belt. So I'm hoping Ilia Topuria beats him and wins against Islam Makhachev. But before all that, we have Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. And according to recent footage, Max Holloway looks pretty good. He's hitting the bag like crazy, posting on his social media. He's ready to retain the BMF belt against Charles Oliveira, which is March 7th, 2026, Las Vegas. If you haven't realized, all the biggest fights are in Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena. Like I said, Max Holloway's looked very, very sharp. Very sharp in many of his fights. He looks sharp in his training footage. He's just one of the best boxers in the history of the UFC. The guy is an absolute animal. Charles Oliveira, one of the greatest submission specialists in the history of the UFC. Can submit you anyway. Arm bar, choke. The guy is absolutely unbelievable. These guys are dogs. One of my two favorite entertaining fighters for sure. Max Holloway pointing in the middle of the ring against Justin Gaethje to win the BMF belt is one of the greatest moments. I think it's the greatest knockout besides Jose Aldo being knocked out by Conor in 13 seconds in the history of the UFC at UFC 300 when Max Holloway knocked out Justin Gaethje and goes like this. You want to go right now? In the middle of the ring. In the middle of the ring. He last 10 seconds knocks him out cold. That's the greatest knockout, in my opinion, in the history of the UFC. Max Holloway could definitely do it again against Charles Oliveira. But previously, these guys fought way back in 2015 at featherweight. Oliveira suffered an injury and the fight ended very early, but these guys have fought in the past. When an injury's in a fight, I don't really count it because, nobody's knocked each other out, nobody's submitted each other. So I believe this fight will, justify what happens in that fight. I think Max Holloway comes out with the victory. It will be very close. Like I said, it will be Holloway striking versus Charles Oliveira submission maneuvers. Charles Oliveira is absolutely unbelievable on the ground. I mean, if Holloway's on the ground with Charles Oliveira, and he could get submitted because Charles Oliveira is that good at submitting. But Charles Oliveira has been on a recent losing streak. He lost, one of the biggest fights of his career against Ilia recently, getting knocked out absolutely cold in that fight. He got absolutely dropped against Ilia which, obviously Ilia with winning that fight over Charles Oliveira because it was a vacated belt by Islam Makhachev, becoming the lightweight champion of the world for the UFC. And as of right now, Ilia is the undisputed. He is the original lightweight champion of the UFC. He is the best fighter on the planet, in my opinion. Besides Islam Makhachev, Ilia is the best fighter on this planet. No, but anyways, Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira over a decade later, fighting at 155, lightweight weight, for the BMF belt. I think Charles Oliveira knows that this is a huge fight when it comes to his career. He explained many times that the BMF belt, it means a lot to him because, he's lost many fights now in a row. I believe he needs to win this fight. Otherwise, people are going to start thinking, is he done? Because he can't keep getting knocked out. Because if you keep getting knocked out, people are going to question if this guy's good enough, is his chin is good enough to fight in the UFC ever again, and compete at the highest level, because he's going to start losing credibility to fight in these moments. Charles Oliveira has got his growth in the UFC over the years has been absolutely insane. Winning and beating one of the great fighters, submitting fighters. He is unbelievable, Charles Oliveira, one of the best fighters, submission guys. Besides Khabib, I think when it comes to submissions in the history of the UFC, this guy is an absolute animal when it comes to wrestling and submitting people. I only have, like I said, Khabib and Charles, two of the best submission guys ever. That's all. These guys prioritize submitting people. If he wins, he sees the BMF belt as a big springboard back into the lightweight title contention. I don't know about that because he just got knocked out by Ilia and he's got to reinvent himself and win many more fights, I think, to get back in the discussion for the lightweight belt, because he got completely annihilated against Ilia I mean, Ilia just rocked him and he went to bed real quick. I think Charles Oliveira needs to win this fight. I mean, he will be the BMF champion if he wins this fight, like I said, but I don't know if it's enough for him to be the, lightweight number one contender. Even though Max Holloway, is great. I mean, it's up to Dana White in the end, and Hunter Campbell and all those guys that run that office for the UFC. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to him rematching for the belt if he wins the BMF belt. But I think Charles Oliveira, if he does beat Max Holloway, and if Holloway beats Charles Oliveira, and if Nate Diaz isn't booked for the White House, because I believe Nate Diaz is teasing a return very soon, I think you have to throw Nate Diaz on the White House. He is as American get, like I said too. I think you gotta have, if that fight with Conor doesn't happen with Nate Diaz, maybe Conor could fight Holloway or Oliveira for the BMF belt at the White House, because Conor said he'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place. Recently, he said that in the past, and it hasn't happened in 5 years. But now he's training constantly, posting training footage, fighting people in other leagues and other organizations now. Like I said, He fought a 6'5" guy today, sparring him. He's relevant. He's in the PFL. He's fighting actual guys, and he looks like his speed is getting faster. If he's serious, I think you could book that fight too. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Conor and Holloway for the BMF belt? I mean, that would be absolutely insane. They fought in the past. It was a decision with Conor McGregor winning the decision. This is very early in Conor McGregor's career. It was a UFC fight night. That's how long ago it was. A fight night. I mean, that's how you know Conor McGregor was just coming up. Because, he ain't going to be on no fight night anymore. He's too big. He's too big of a draw. He's the biggest draw ever. Like I said, they can make that fight for that White House event. But I think it's more likely that Conor would fight Nate Diaz over this, but you never know. Dana White looks at money, looks at matchups. You can make that fight very easily. These guys, Conor McGregor, so he's willing to fight anybody. I think he could definitely, if he's serious, maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens. I hope it happens. Either Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Nate Diaz. I think it's going to be Nate Diaz out of those three. We'll see. We will see. But I want to move on to the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall just recently got eye surgery after his October loss in UFC 321 against Cyril Gane. Well, not his loss. I'm sorry. Title defense. That was, no contest because of his eye pokes. I think it's time for the UFC to strip Tom Aspinall. I don't think he's worthy of having that belt anymore. Because there's rumors now coming out, and doctors on social media, doctors on YouTube explaining the type of injury that Tom Aspinall has. He could never fight again. He's having major problems seeing out of his vision. He's seeing black spots. He can't look at his phone for a certain amount of time. Whether those are all true or not, because he did get eye surgery and stuff, the UFC heavyweight division has to move on, and they have to have somebody fight at the White House as a heavyweight champion. Because as of right now, I don't think Tom Aspinall is fighting on that card because he can barely see out of his eyes. He can't even spar right now. I think Dana White, he needs to strip him of his belt. I don't think he should be the heavyweight champion anymore. And I believe they should do a vacated title match for the heavyweight belt at the UFC White House between Alex Pereira versus John Jones. I think Alex Pereira would vacate the light heavyweight belt, and whoever wants that could fight for that belt. And John Jones versus Alex Pereira for the heavyweight championship of the world for the UFC. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Who wouldn't want to see John Jones versus Alex Pereira? I mean, come on. That would be one of the greatest fights in the history of the UFC. I still think John Jones would win because he's a better wrestler. Alex Pereira could catch him, though. Alex Pereira's got phenomenal knockout power. John Jones got knockout power, too, and he could submit you. John Jones, the GOAT. Dana White's even said it. He's the greatest fighter in the history of the UFC. He's just hard to manage because you never know if he's serious or not, too. I mean, when you make so much money and you realize that you're not as relevant, like when it comes to fighting, it's hard to believe because, I have to say, John Jones held the division up last year, all year. Last year, I thought we were getting Tom Aspinall versus John Jones for the UFC heavyweight division. We never got it. I don't know why. I'm tired of people saying he was scared of Aspinall because Aspinall is showing his true colors. Let's just be honest. Aspinall is showing his true colors right now. I know he had eye surgery and how severe it is, but come on, man. There's so many people that have been poked in the eye and come back and fought in many other fights. Who knows if he really needed the surgery? He got the surgery. It is what it is. Now he's having more problems with his eyes. I don't think he should be the UFC heavyweight champion anymore. I believe it should be vacated and somebody else should be fighting for the belt. Like I said, Aspinall, if he doesn't fight before April, they gotta have the fight at the White House for the belt. And I think the only people for that matchup is Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, with Alex Pereira vacating the light heavyweight belt and Jon Jones fighting him for the heavyweight championship at the White House. Like I talked about the White House before, you got 3 ideas here. I think if Conor fights, he's the main event. End of story. Main event. I don't care if it's for the belt. He's fighting at the White House. Conor versus Nate Diaz, which I think that will be the main event if that happens. Or Conor versus whoever. I don't think it's Michael Chandler anymore. Michael Chandler probably will be on the card. He is American. He runs out with the flag. He loves country. Justin Gaethje will be on the card, obviously, versus Ilia. I think if Conor's on the card, like I said, he will be the main event. And then it's just a debate now who will be the co-main between if Jon Jones fights Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight belt. Or you could have Ilia Poirier versus Justin Gaethje for the co-main for the lightweight belt, heavyweight fight or lightweight belt for the co-main. You could have either. I think Jon Jones would be the co-main, unfortunately. I like Ilia a lot, but Jon Jones is the GOAT, the greatest fighter ever. I think he's the co-main event. Yeah, you have to have Conor and Jones back-to-back. And then if you want to have the third fight, Ilia versus Justin Gaethje. So that would be my 3 final orders when it comes to like the top 3 final fights of the night. It would be Ilia versus Justin Gaethje, Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, and Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz or whoever maybe the BMF champion is if they want to go down that route. Max Holloway or Charles. A lot of people didn't realize, but when Conor McGregor broke his leg before all that, when he walked into the ring against Dustin Poirier, which I don't believe Dustin Poirier won that fight. I believe it should have been a doctor stoppage, no contest. Nobody should have won that fight. When you snap your leg in half, it's hard to fight and shouldn't be counting as a loss. But whatever, they count it as a loss. It's ridiculous, that whole thing. But if Conor coming out in that fight at UFC 264, the third fight against Dustin Poirier, he had a green-yellow mouth guard, and rumors were saying that he was going to call out Charles Oliveira, who was the lightweight champion at the time, for the lightweight belt if he beat Dustin Poirier that night. Who knows? Maybe they do that. Maybe they have Charles, if he does beat Max Holloway, for the BMF belt at the White House against Conor for the main event. I would love to watch that fight still. I mean, Conor versus Oliveira would be insane. Conor versus Holloway, Conor versus Diaz. It's just that he just has such a draw. It's just, you can't say no because it's just the numbers that he's going to put up for this card. I'm excited for this White House card. It's going to be absolutely insane. Michael Bisping weighed in on Tom Aspinall's injury with his eyes and told him that, and said it out in the public, that he shouldn't rush his recovery. And, it's very fragile, the eyes, obviously. The tissue needs to be healed, and you can't return too soon. I get all that, but you can't hold the heavyweight division. It's one of the most well-known divisions in the UFC ever, and you got Ciryl Gane waiting. You got Jon Jones waiting, possibly. Alex Pereira wanting to moving up to heavyweight and fight Jon Jones. Jon Jones and Alex both want to fight each other. I don't understand why Dana won't make that fight. I hope he makes the fight. I hope he listens to the fans and actually gives them the fight at the White House that they want as a fight. They want these guys fighting. They want Ilia Islam, but obviously they can't do that because Justin is the interim champion, and they need an undisputed championship fight between Ilia versus Justin for the undisputed lightweight championship belt. But it's been a couple months since Tom Aspinall has been fought last October. So you got November, December, January, February. He just got another surgery, second surgery. I think this was his second eye surgery that just happened last week or very recent. It's time for the UFC to consider stripping him of the belt because you can't hold the division for so long. Can't hold the division for so long because people want to see fights. They want to see the heavyweight championship fight. I mean, it's been one of the biggest divisions ever in the UFC in the past. You know, like names like Chuck Liddell, Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier. He's got Stipe Miocic. These guys are light heavyweight fighters. I mean, it's what it is. You can't hold this division because it just has. You need a heavyweight championship fight at the White House. And if Tom Aspinall is not ready from double eye surgery, you got to strip him. You got to take away the belt. You got to have John Jones versus Alex Pereira. Everybody, I don't think anybody would be against that. So, Tom Aspinall, get healthy. Obviously, all the best to him. He is a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. It's just he's left a bad taste now. Since now he's not fighting for a while and making the UFC wait on him. You know, he had double eye surgery. He got poked. I understand all that. But now the UFC is waiting on him to come back and fight for the heavyweight belt. And I believe you need a heavyweight championship fight at the White House. So I think it's maybe a month or two. It's time to strip him. You know, maybe one more month you give him, and if he's not ready, it's time to strip him of the belt and have that fight with Jones and Pereira for the heavyweight championship. You guys have any questions? YouTube, any questions? Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate the support. You guys got any questions when it comes to the UFC White House? When it comes to Justin Gaethje, McGregor, Jones, is so. I mean, there's another thing is, you know, the brand of the UFC and people watching this fight. They're gonna want to see. They want McGregor coming back. Sorry, he's just the biggest name, and he's serious about fighting now. It looks like. Michael Chandler is out the window. To me, the interest has been gone for a while. It's either Diaz, Holloway, or Charles for whatever belt, whatever matchup. It's time to, you know, move on from Michael Chandler and Conor. I mean, Michael Chandler isn't the same fighter. He's lost multiple fights in a row. I mean, he's gotten knocked out in many of them. Patty Pimblett absolutely annihilated him the last time Michael Chandler stepped in the octagon. And think Michael Chandler, I don't know. Maybe they have Michael Chandler fight for the BMF belt against Max Holloway. I would want to see that. Why not? These guys are they're major entertainers for the sport. Michael Chandler has one of the best knockouts too with the kick to Tony Ferguson 4 or 5 years ago now. When he called out Conor after kicking Tony Ferguson in the chin and totally putting him to sleep. I would love to see Michael Chandler on the White House card. I would like to see Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan for the Bantamweight Championship. They're saying that Sean O'Malley might have to wait. I don't know why he would have to wait. Sean O'Malley just won, and I think he should be the guy to fight Peter Yan. They're saying Umar might they might match him up with Sean O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan should be the bantamweight championship. I think Umar's got to build himself back up more. I don't think he has a bigger name than Sean O'Malley either. So I think that helps Sean O'Malley's case when it comes to Dana White making a decision, Hunter and all those other guys making a decision on who's going to fight for the bantamweight belt at the White House. Because I think that's another title fight that's going to happen. It's going to be bantamweight. It's going to be heavyweight, lightweight, BMF, light heavyweight, featherweight. I don't see why Volkanovski won't fight after just beating Diego Lopez. I mean, my opinion, with the win over Diego Lopez, Alexander Volkanovski is the greatest featherweight in the history of the UFC. He's beaten Max Holloway 3 times. How the heck do you beat Max Holloway 3 times? I mean, the guy is absolutely how do you beat Max Holloway 3 times? Max Holloway is not easy. He's a BMF champion right now, and he fights for the belt very, very often. How do you have this guy beating him 3 times? How does he beat Max Holloway 3 times? But it blows my mind. That's how good Alexander Volkanovski is. And he beat Jose Aldo. So he's beaten 2 of the best fighters in the UFC, and arguably the comparison between the 2 greatest featherweights is Alexander Volkanovski and Jose Aldo for the featherweight championship. For the featherweight, division, I'm sorry. Those 2 guys are the 2 best featherweight fighters in the history of the UFC. But like I said, Volkanovski beat Aldo. He beat Holloway 3 times. 3 times. To me, he beat Diego Lopez twice. The last one just beating him at 30, and he's 37, and he's still the champion. Unbelievable conditioning, unbelievable, shape. Volkanovski to me is the greatest featherweight, and people love him. They love his intro of him walking out. They're just a big fan of him. He's for the people of the fighting industry. He loves the UFC. He loves fighting for his country of Australia. Just winning, like I said, UFC 325 in Sydney, Australia, main event against Diego Lopez, the second fight. And in that fight, Diego Lopez broke both his feet, which is insane. It's insane how you break both your feet. But Alexander Volkanovski is the greatest featherweight in the history of the UFC. He just tied Jose Aldo for most title fights in the featherweight division in the history of the UFC. So you got to have Volkanovski on the White House. I don't think he fights anywhere in between that, because fighters need time to fight and condition themselves for these fights in between. So you have March, April, May, and June, because February is almost over. We have 2 weeks left of February. So you have March, April, May, and June. It's 4 months. 4 months until we have the UFC White House. I'm so excited, man. This is going to be the biggest event. It's just going to be the biggest event in the history of UFC. You got people that are retired talking about it. I don't see it happening, but you got GSP saying, I'm not in it, but I wouldn't mind coming back. He's 44. I don't think he's coming back. Don't get me wrong. But if Nick Diaz wants to come back, throw freaking GSP and Nick Diaz on the card. There should be more than 7 fights. There's too many fighters that you can name, and too many talented guys that you can name that could fight, and females also. Everybody forgets about Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison, for the belt too. Because the only reason why that fight didn't happen is because Kayla Harrison has a herniated disc in her neck and she had to get surgery. So I think that fight is on the White House also. That would be the greatest women's fight in the history of the UFC for sure. Besides, at the time, popularity-wise, Ronda Rousey was the most popular fighter in the UFC when it comes to women's. But Amanda Nunes ended that real quick. Before Amanda Nunes ruined that quick. Holly Holm, the biggest shock in the history of the UFC women's divisions was Holly Holm's kick to Ronda Rousey and winning the belt and taking the belt from Ronda Rousey. It was absolutely insane watching that fight. I believe that was in Sydney, Australia, too. Just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So you got to have Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison for the belt on the White House card. So you got to have the women's belt. Got to have the lightweight men's, obviously, lightweight championship, featherweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight, featherweight, and welterweight. Islam has to be on this card. And I think the fight to make for the welterweight division is Islam versus Usman. It would be one of the greatest fights ever. I mean, Islam it's amazing. He's amazing. I don't like them. I don't like those guys. I don't like Khabib. I don't like Islam, but these guys are phenomenal fighters. One of the two best fighters in the history of UFC. Islam's better than Khabib in my opinion because of his striking. Way better fighter than Khabib because Khabib really couldn't strike at all. Islam has both. Islam is absolutely insane. He can knock you out. He could submit you. He's that good. Usman is unbelievable. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. Besides GSP, Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight in the history of the UFC, and he's fought pretty good in short notice fights. Like the fight against Khamzat, he did pretty good for a very short notice fight. And I think the fight to make for the welterweight belt at the White House is Kamaru Usman versus Islam Makhachev. So here are my matchups for the White House. My personal matchups. Dana White, it's up to him to make whatever he wants. I mean, I hope he does what the fans want for the White House. But here it is. Main event. Conor versus whoever. I don't care. Biggest draw. Jones versus Pereira. Heavyweight championship. Aspinall is going to be vacated, in my opinion, eventually. Ilia versus Justin Gaethje for the lightweight championship. Kamaru Usman versus Islam Makhachev for the welterweight championship. Alexander Volkanovski versus, I don't even know who he would match him against because he just beats everybody. He's beaten everybody already in the featherweight division. I'm trying to think who would be a guy they can match him up against. I guess we'll see who it is. They're going to announce. I'm sure Volkanovski's going to be on that card. You could have Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. There's so many matchups. It's not 6 to 7 fights from the TKO boss, Ari Emanuel, CEO of the TKO. That's not enough. Not enough fights. There's too many different fights you have to make. You got to have Sean O'Malley on it too. You got to have Michael Chandler on it. You got to have Peter Yan on it. You got to have what's his name? Umar Nurmagomedov. I mean, you got to have these guys. Usman, I get it mixed up. Usman or Umar, they're brothers, But anyways, you got to have all these guys on it. It's just too big of an event not to have these guys on this card. It's too big. But like I said, Conor, Diaz, Jones, Pereira, Ilia, and Justin Gaethje. That's the final three. It has to be the final three for the White House. Or you could have, if you want to move Ilia down, which I don't think they would, you have Islam versus Kamaru for the welterweight belt. I would want Kamaru to win, but Islam is tough. Islam is tough, but I would want Kamaru to win. It would be a major win in his career. It would definitely maybe even push him over GSP, considering his age and his knee problems now, because he is older. With the win over Islam, you never know. I mean, GSP is the second greatest of all time, like I said. It's an even stronger argument if he takes the belt away from Islam, because nobody's beating Islam right now. Islam is on a tear. Islam is just beating everybody. It's just insane. He's way better than his cousin Khabib. Way better. But, like I said, that's my prediction. I believe all those guys will be on the card. It's not enough 6-7 fights. It's going to be between 12 to 14 easily. Too many guys that want to fight on this card. Too many guys vocal about the card. Guys that are retired that want to fight on the card. I say make all the fights. UFC, please just do what the fans want, because the Sphere matchup-wise was a disappointment, even though the venue was absolutely unbelievable. You gotta give the fans what they want for the White House. But that's what I gotta say when it comes to this UFC night. I think those are the matchups to make. I want to thank you guys for joining on social media all over, YouTube and Instagram. Appreciate you guys. And, we'll see what happens when it comes to Dana White, because he is making the announcements. Supposedly this weekend we will have an answer on who is fighting at the White House. I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to it. Just want to thank you guys for joining, and we'll be back next week. There'll be a lot more sports talk when it comes to NFL, NBA, going on with the Knicks, and many, 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 many more sports. So I just want to thank you guys for joining, and have a great night.